Welcome to Buddha's in Your Landfill, or Buddhism just plain and simple. Now, we've been talking about patterns. I hope you're following these talks. We've been talking about using the quantum physics of is an electron a pattern or a particle as kind of a metaphor to understand that the pattern is the message and not the content. So let's talk about what's on everybody's mind. Mr. Trump and Helsinki and the pattern, because they've been reviewing this pattern on TV that Mr. Trump has of, well, who, just go to Charlottesville, who was responsible for the riot and the death at Charlottesville. And Trump said both sides did it. Both sides were guilty. So if you go back, whenever questioned about left or right, or who's the instigator, who is the cause of the problem, the pattern is he will always say, and check this out, he will always say, both sides are guilty. Now this creates an anxiety feedback loop of self-division in the national consciousness. We have to look at the collective, that every culture, every society has a mind. You could call it the collective mind. And so the American collective mind is different from the French collective or the English mind or the Dutch or the Chinese or whatever. Because a collective mind, like the American mind, we all have the same reference, which is American history, American pride, identity. Just like your family. Your family has a collective consciousness that is different from other families because you all have a common history. So there's a common reference that makes a collective an identity. So there is an American identity because there is a common reference that is the same for everybody in America. Now, what happens when the collective is split in what we could call a false equivalence? In other words, logically, we'll take Charlottesville as an example. When the alt-right marches and creates a disturbance, logically, you would say, well, there's a cause for that disturbance. And the cause would be the Nazis or the nationalists, whatever, penetrating the town of Charlottesville and creating a disturbance, an outbreak. Either if it's people rising up against it or not, it doesn't make any difference. The point is that the spear point was the jab was the alt-right. So when you say that both sides did it, that creates a oscillation. Now this is my favorite symbol, the Ouroboros, which is this oscillation of the snake eating itself. So when you divide the collective mind into two equal halves, a head and a tail, then it starts going around and around, trying to restore the original oneness, but it can't. Because each side is trying to restore the unity of the collective, the peace, the one that has no second, can't be found because it's divided into two, and then each one blames the other half for the disunity. So they go round and around and around in history, trying to restore unity by consuming itself. And this creates a feedback loop, like when you take an amplifier and stick it in front of when you take a microphone, stick it in front of an amplifier, and it goes wow, 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 wow. And turn it off, you see. If you don't turn it off, it'll blow up. The energy of self-division, trying to restore unity by eating itself, you see, the energy grows because energy is eating energy. Energy is magnifying itself because it is multiplying itself by eating itself. And when one half of the coin eats the other increases its energy. So each one increases its energy to restore balance. Let's take a look at this more. See, this is positive, and that's negative. So if positive side wants to restore the one by increasing 10 points, its other half will automatically increase 10 points to restore balance. And now this side here will say, well, okay, well, I'm going to increase 20 points. I'll up it 20 because I want to restore balance. I've got to eat the tail. I've got to restore unity by eating this other energy. And so this, you see, both sides is the head. We think this is the tail. No, it's the head eating the head. So then this will increase 20. And so this will say, wait a minute, I've got to eat this other half to restore unity, so I'm going to 40. And then said, no, I'm going to 40. Do you see how it goes? Wow, 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 wow. At some point, the oscillation will be so fast that the system can't hold it. And the amplifier will blow up. This creates anxiety, because anxiety is the fear of death. So we know that the end to this is the amplifier or the nation blowing up. Self-destruction. People call, the apocalypse. Bring it, Armageddon, bring it on. Let's get it over with, you see. Armageddon is when the amplifier blows up. It can't sustain the magnification of the whirling energy, you see. Now when Trump, bless his heart, says both sides did it, basically he is feeding this feedback loop of self-division. And I think basically when we just look at this from a physics point of view, very scientifically, and look at the whole nation as an amplifier with Trump sticking his mic up into it, and it's going wow, 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 and everybody's saying, what is the turning point? When can it stop? When will the nation wake up? When will we see what we're doing to ourselves, you see? When will the Republicans stand up? Now, what about Helsinki? What's different about Helsinki? Why is that different? If the pattern's the same, Both sides did it. Well, up until Helsinki, Trump was always talking about the American collective, the left and the right. Both sides of America are guilty. And there is a certain truth to that. Don't get me wrong there. But when he went to Helsinki, then he drew the equivalence of Putin and the American intelligence agency as both being wrong. Both did it. We're both guilty. And he said it, we both, America and Putin are both guilty. So that was the pattern, you see, of just using this pattern to stir up the American collective, which is the way he maintains his sense of the fixer. In other words, when we're in this tape loop of self-division and anxiety, he then positions himself as the fixer. You see, in other words, when there is anxiety created by the Ouroboros, or the self-consuming snake, he stands outside as the fixer. So there is a certain population here, 1/2 of the snake is going to depend upon Trump to fix this. It has to be fixed. But we think it's employment or trade or what. No, that's not. That's just the content. What needs to be fixed is the pattern. The pattern is creating the anxiety. And so whenever we start pointing to something that's a problem, we don't see the pattern. You see, that's the magical act. The magician points your attention away from the hand that's doing the trick. He wants you to look over there. While you're looking over there, he's changing the card here. You don't even see it. So the magic act here that creates the tape loop of anxiety, that is creating a neurotic collective, the American collective mind is becoming pathological, as if it were an individual sitting in a psychiatrist's clinic, where we have a pathology going, because we have lost our common reference, our common truth. You see, truth has been split, and there is no common truth left. That's our fear. But this has not just been Trump. This has been growing ever since the 60s. Because I remember in the 50s, there was a common truth. There was no question about the American collective mind. Now it's in question. Now we got two minds. Which one is true? One has to be true. You can't have two minds. That's schizophrenia. So the two minds then are going around and around. So the only common truth we have left are facts. And that's where the special counsel and the Justice Department, which is very scientific in that it's just about the facts, the trail of facts. That is our last hope. That is our last hope to stop the tape loop and the gathering storm of energy that will explode the amplifier. This is a good metaphor. I'll end with that. Trump is an amplifier, a mic, that goes too close to the amplifier and creates a feedback loop. And his pattern has been successful in that when he creates this, particularly in real estate deals or whatever, it's been successful. He comes in and gets the deal that stops the feedback. You create the feedback loop, and then you come in and you create a deal and you fix it. And you get a win-win. Because the feedback loop has to end, because we all know that if it doesn't, the amplifier, the system will explode. And that's death. So this is the threat of death. So let's end with that. It's a good metaphor. It's a good handle. This microphone in the amplifier. Wow, 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 wow. Turn it off. So at what point does Trump get turned off? Just at what point do we pull the mic back from the amplifier? At what point do we see the pattern? If you don't see the pattern, it will continue to explode, to expand. Well, there's no check on it. There's no check on Trump. That's where he was very successful in the context of his real estate business. Well, he could say he was successful, but he found out how to keep expanding at all costs, at all means. The expansion is the end for Mr. Trump. But when he became president, he finds himself on a different playing field than when he was dealing with real estate. Now, endless expansion of Trump will destroy the nation and the Western civilization. Or let's say civilization. So now this is a global world now. So Trump is sticking the microphone into the amplifier of the whole planet, which has become obvious at Helsinki and his trip to NATO. The tactics he used as a real estate dealer are self-destructive or destructive when used on the national playing ground, and now the national playing field is also the playing field of civilization itself. And this is why there's a certain higher degree of anxiety rising now, because it's death. It's the end of time. So we shouldn't be a good biblical Christian and say, come on, bring it on. We shouldn't say, bring on Armageddon, bring on the apocalypse, let's get it over with. We don't want to end up like Syria. They got it over with. Look where they are. Thanks for dropping in.